I'm going to stand in the light. Okay, I want you to grab my phone and put my face into the crosshairs.
Okay. Just, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
So in a 3 millisecond response, it did a facial recognition on me, and it says, this is what happens when you get gray hair. It says, I'm 95% confident it's you, Tim. Now, we can do this with scale, the way we shard the Azure databases, and with performance. And this is on a cheap ass, excuse my language, this is on a cheap, cell phone camera. With me? So now I'm going to aim it at you, and it's going to go, I hope this works. It's going to go, shit, I don't know who the hell you are, which it did. It said, I don't know who the hell you are. So I'm going to say, and it rapid fired a bunch of pictures of him. Now realize we're not storing the picture. We're doing in the cloud, we're sending up pictures, and it's crunching and doing a bunch of trig and calculus and doing a mesh of the face. Okay, so and then your name is Mike. Whoops. Mike. And I cannot do your last name. I can't even pronounce it. W. Twoi. Tui. All right, so there's Mike, and it says I'm adding. So we're provisioning him. This will take a little bit because we're gonna. Well, I should put it on my MiFi as opposed to cellular network. Okay. Now you would expect if I go back and go like this and get him in the crosshairs, boom, there's Mike, and I'm 95% sure that's Mike. That's not the cool demo. You ready for the cool demo? Okay, ready, Mike?
Yep.
Now, if you look closely, you've got age, race, gender, right? Emotion, that's whether he's smiling or laughing. There, boom, it got him. See that? It got him. Mike. Right? And it's saying Mike is this UI is kind of nasty. We need more screen real estate here. It's saying I'm not really confident about Mike's sexuality, but I'm fairly confident he's within the ballpark of 43 years old. And I'm kind of sort of think he's white. And then what's that last demographic? Oh, and then here, right here, it got you. So let me stand in front of it just so it gets me. And then I'm going to pretend like I'm smiling. I could be miserable on the inside, but if I pretend like I'm smiling, it's going to say, hey, he's happy about this. Okay? Is it saying I'm 72? Damn it. I did this in front of a huge audience like 6 weeks ago, and it said I was Asian.
Asian?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I said, darn it, I'm Asian. And I wasn't supposed to say that. Yeah, with machine learning and some other tricks, the point here is, yeah, see, it hates me. The point here is facial recognition is bulletproof. Well, we can get it almost bulletproof in the right scenarios. Demographic profiling is tricky still, very tricky. And if you think about it, a Japanese person looks totally different than a Filipino, right? Hat, glasses, although it did pretty well with you. If you tilt your head, everything starts on the plane of the eyes, and then you build the mesh out from there. You can fool it. But we're not done with this. We're going to come back to this because this is just a demo showing the technology. and then I'll show you the implementation. All right, thanks, Mike. So I'm Tim, and I'm happy to be here. It's been a long time. There we go. Go. So this setting expectations. This is a like intro to programming Kinect 2 version 2 session that I do at the big conferences, and I'll just change it around a little bit for this. Everything I have here, you're more than welcome to have. The source code, and we can't have that there's IP in the facial recognition thing. But in this session, anything I have, you're more than welcome to have, and you would email me, and my email address will be at the end also if you want this stuff, and I'll send you a link to download it. Okay. Yeah, I've been doing this a long time. This is the uncomfortable about Tim stuff, so you don't have to talk about me, and I'm not going to talk about myself either. What can I tell you? When I didn't have gray hair and I wasn't 10 pounds overweight, I worked on some famous and some not so famous product teams at Microsoft, some server-based teams. Back in those days, we'd build software with 2,500 people, and it would take 2 years to build it. Isn't that amazing? Like mid-90s. Isn't that amazing? Did you know Windows NT has 65 million lines of code? Yeah, how times have changed, how the tools and the platform and the plumbing has become so much better. Here's my company. You don't know its name, and you don't care what we do, but if you're using a computer, you're definitely using something we've built. This is a handful of the customers that we can talk about. Most of the work we do is NDA. Why would I come all the way out to Fresno, all the way north from Fresno, from Chicago, to do this? Well, because Mike asked me about a year ago. But in addition to that, because you have those, which way's east? Is that east? You have this big set of mountains with big trout in them, and I'm a fly fisherman. So I always leverage this trip and go into the Sierras, which I'll be doing tonight, actually, and spending the weekend fly fishing on the Kern. And every once in a while, we get an employee or a customer out of me speaking in front of audiences like you. These are famous people using our software. Since the last time I talked to you guys, we have done some very high-profile work. Anytime you see someone touching a screen, almost anytime you see someone touching a big screen on TV, that's us. CNN, NBC, ABC, you name it. We've got the presidential elections coming up, the Iowa caucus stuff. We're building all that software, including the voting app. If you're .NET people, is everyone like a programmer, .NET person, developer? Yeah. This is all WPF. Most of the broadcast TV stuff we do is all WPF. Let some DirectX mixed in, because we do some fancy stuff. And yeah, we do a lot of Kinect stuff, and then Surface Hub now, and things like that. Oh, well, we'll get to that. So here's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about where this $200 device makes sense, and all the places it doesn't make sense. TIMHU. It's just not going to replace a keyboard, right? There are places where this little device can really augment a user experience in software, but data entry is not one of them. In fact, there's nothing that can replace a keyboard. Let's see, what else are we going to talk about? Oh, I'll show some code. We'll even step through some C#. We'll talk about the roadmap to technology, and then if you know me, we'll be demoing for sure. This is this Kinect thing is part of the NUI thing, the natural user interface. This isn't Microsoft's definition of NUI. This would be mine. It's touching it, it's waving at it, it's speaking to it. Ultimately, it's thinking it. We have neural-based interfaces these days. If you've heard of Emotive and some of these other companies where you actually think at a computer and it reacts. Why would you do that? Well, I would personally love to build software for the millions of people in the world who have lost complete control of their physical bodies, like MS, quadriplegic, stuff like that. Wouldn't that be awesome or someone in a wheelchair to have them steer and drive the wheelchair just by thinking it? I think that would be awesome. We're probably about a decade away from that. And then I'm told we're in the year of the wearable, right? Or was that last year? So this is like a 30-cent accelerometer crammed into $125 plastic band. You realize that? You know that the reason I have one. Do you guys have these things? Do you use these? They're so stupid. We did a company thing, to get everybody fit because programmers are typically not very healthy. They eat stuff like those cookies all day. So, anyways, I won the contest, and everyone said I'm never playing again if Tim's gonna play. And you want to know why? Because when you're marching down a river going like this, it's triple counting you, right? That's how I won. Anyways, enough of that. Yeah, let's. Okay, so I want you to stare at this very closely. How do you? Oh, I'm in that weird mode. I want you to stare at this very closely. This isn't going to be that impressive until the end. Does that make sense? That probably doesn't make sense. We want to do this one. So this is part of how we freaked out the craft people. This is nothing more than digital advertising, right? So Mike, you mind? Oh, wait a minute. Where's my? Yeah, I just wanted you to stand in front of this thing and just you don't. Yeah. Now just walk around. Just walk around a little bit. Now walk in front of it. Okay. So it sensed him and it took it out of that mode. And then he could walk up to the screen and touch one of these things, and it would give him some content and blah 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 blah. This is all out of whack because it's rendered for a big portrait refrigerator. This. Okay, I kind of gave it away. All right, you're off the hook till the next time. This runs in coolers that you would see in a grocery store, refrigerators, in transparent HD capable touchscreens. You're going to start seeing these in the grocery stores. Kraft and Nestle and Coke are the ones we're building it for. And it was doing some stuff that I'll show you later. Fair enough? I just want to get you, somewhat excited about that. Okay. Well, you saw if it was rendered correctly, it would have been running those videos, and then the minute he walks in front of it, it would be like boom. Here's some content that you can engage and play with. Okay, so there's that really quickly. We already talked about this, didn't we? Yeah, that looks like a dupe. Here, this is, it's not so new anymore, the Kinect version 2, and that's important for a number of reasons that we'll talk about in a bit. This thing, the last time I was here, I was using a Kinect version 1 device. It was, at list price, it was $250. It could see about 10 to 15 feet. This thing is $200, $50 cheaper. It sees 3 times as far, 3 times as well in total darkness, and it is the most amazing device in the world. That's the good news. There's bad news coming. I'm a good news, bad news type of guy. That's the good news. Amazing, inexpensive device. One of the bad news would be, look how big it is. When we cram these things in the cooler, we're literally cramming, and they're obvious. It's obvious you could see them. Yeah. Oh, feel free to be interactive.
Yeah.
That helps me.
So they bundled all these with the Xbox One, right? And people didn't use them, didn't necessarily want them. So I got mine off eBay for $60, $70.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
No, it's worse than that. Remember, I'm not a Microsoft employee, so we can bash them where they deserve it. What was it? PlayStation the one it competes with? I'm not much of a game. I'm not a game type player. Well, the PlayStation was about $100 cheaper, and Microsoft is getting their butt kicked, right? So they yanked the Kinect out of the box to get it in parity in price, and it. I don't think it really worked. The real complication was people like you started buying Kinects separate, and they ran out of them for 6 months, and they still have a shortage. Dummies, bad product planning. But that consumer market in games is crazy. Anyways, this is a traditional HD camera. We'll go all through the interfaces in a bit here. It's got an amazing microphone that can, we can engineer it to listen to someone specifically. Because it's Windows, it's all 36 languages, that type of stuff. And then its SDK is pretty brilliant. I want you to stare very closely at this. I was staring at this on the airplane today as I was putting this together. And you can see that November of 2007, that's when the first Kinect appeared on the consumer market. They went, just short of 3 years, and did 8 major releases of that SDK. That's as fast as I've ever seen Microsoft go on anything, including Visual Studio. That's amazing. That team was productive. So what Microsoft did is they pulled a bunch of Xbox people, a bunch of Visual Studio folks, and then some MSR folks, put them in a team, and they built this thing, and they just ran like the wind. And then shortly thereafter, they shipped this device, September of 2014, and then the SDK with it. So we're talking about close to a year of nothing when they were doing revs every 4 months. You want to know why? The reason is interesting. The HoloLens. That whole team is building the HoloLens. We don't have one yet. I'm told we're getting one really soon, and we get to build a flagship app for them. But does everyone know what the HoloLens is? It's a hologram generator. It's got a .NET, or it's got a Windows API to it. They'll probably screw it up and make it Windows 10 only. I don't know. But the fact that you could do this type of stuff is pretty cool. And if you've seen the demos, they're spectacular. Like from Build, they're just spectacular. I'm totally into this stuff. Sorry. Okay. So I told you that if you could get a device right now, which you'd have to get off eBay for $75, they go about $200. Everything else is free. But I haven't got to the really bad news yet. Well, I should just tell you, one of the really bad news is this has a Windows 8 dependency. Right? Not many people. I know. It is what it is. There's reasons for that, and they're not all for licensing reasons. But the only way to run one of these things until somebody hacks the interface is on Windows 8. And then the good news is the SDK is rock solid. It's awesome. There's a ton of source code, and they give you all the guidance you could ever want. I already told you that. You're more than welcome to these slides, so you don't have to write down URLs or anything. This SDK is no longer new, so I should get rid of that. I'll show you how to publish to the Windows Store, but you don't have to publish to the Windows Store. You can still build apps in desktop mode, mostly in WPF. But believe it or not, there's a web interface for these things. Here's the typical scenarios for a Kinect device. Like I said, not a CRUD app, but typically the stuff we build, well, nowadays it's all in retail and CPGs, consumer packaged goods, and hotels, hospitality, stuff like that. But we've certainly done our ton of healthcare. And education, that's for sure. Okay, so here's how it rates as compared to the original device. I told you this thing sees well. The first demos that I was doing were like in a completely dark room, and that infrared camera could pick me up like 30 feet away in a completely dark room. That's pretty cool, and do a field of view that's almost a 180. I mentioned it's got an HD capable camera at 30 frames per second. I thought the mics were great on the old device, but they're better here. Oh, it tracks. There's a lot you get for free in Kinect. It is totally brain dead simple to do skeletal tracking. They don't call it that anymore. They call it body tracking, and it'll track 6 humans at a time for free. You don't have no calculus, no trigonometry, anything like that. I'll show you how to do that here in code in a second. Oh, it's so good now that well, I'll show you this in a second too. It can distinguish fingers from distance. Technically, we're really close to being able to do sign language. That would be cool. That would be a great input device as opposed to a keyboard. Yeah. Yeah. So you're engineers, so you guys want to see the inside of it. This cooler thing has gone crazy. So we just manufactured a whole bunch of these coolers, and it's probably my fault, but the hood for the cooler, it sits on top of the cooler, and but the manufacturer covered everything but this, right? But look at what's over here. So they had to send them all back to the machine shop, and they were not pleased with me. Yeah, so basically, this is just 2 physical sensors inside this thing. The 2, for lack of a better word, cameras. One that does the IR, and then one that does that HD camera. But when you start sucking data out of them, you can do things like depth. I told you casually a second ago that it'll track humans for free. It'll pick humans out of a room and automatically give you the skeletal joints. But with depth, you could recognize the logo on a Coke can or Pepsi from 20 feet away, technically, with depth and color probably. That's the data type of the HD camera. This is the infrared data type. And the infrared camera here does a very, very good job. And then I was talking about depth. Depth is how, remind me to do a little demo. Depth is how you green screen. For free, you can green screen yourself. You know what I mean by green screen? You know, like in the movies or on TV. It'll do, this little camera will do that, like with 100 lines of code. It's kind of cool. And this is the body index. This is used. We use this to pull. Like when I made Mike walk up here, the real cool rocket science in that demo app, that demographic profiling thing, and where it facially recognized him, wasn't really figuring out it was Mike. It was plucking faces out of people moving around. That we use the body frame for that. That it'll allow us to get that. Once we get that, we get a skeleton. We get a skeleton, we get a head, and then we just rapid fire pictures and get as good a picture as we can. Obviously, lighting's is gonna mean a lot in that type of thing. And you saw it too. The light, the environment isn't set for a good demographic profile. This is what I've been talking about. I keep calling it skeletal tracking. I shouldn't anymore because they renamed it, or they shouldn't have renamed it. But it's called body frame now. This is 9 Kinect apps out of 10 are going to use this data type because it's so powerful and cool. Let's see. Oh, this is the audio. I'm not an audiophile or an audio engineer, but I've got some stats here. The interval of 16 milliseconds. They associate with an audio beam. There's 4 microphones in the sensor that allow it to pluck someone out uniquely. Not even something. If it's a dog or something like that. And the audio runs at 62 frames per second. So speech recognition with this bad boy is really, really good. I mean, in fact, in a powerful computer, in speech recognition, it's all about CPU. And if you give this thing a CPU, it's bulletproof. Okay, so there they are. Those are all the frame, the data sources that are coming at the Kinect. So let me just show you how they what the Kinect is actually seeing. So bottom middle, so second from the right, second from the left. See the green? Hands open, hands closed, finger. That's pretty darn good. Yeah, feel free to jump up. See the depth camera in the back? I mean, you know. Are you using this camera right here? Oh, sorry. I'm out of frame here. And then I'm speaking, top right. I'm speaking. See how it's following me? I'm speaking over here. Hello. Prove my point. There we go. Right.
So I have this Kinect going back here as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mess with the.
No. No. And we won't get cancer either off these things, I don't think. All right, so this is what the Kinect sees. And when you combine these raw data feeds, really, it's moving data so quickly, you're just sucking it in, right, and processing it. And when you combine them, you can do some interesting things. So let's see, we did that. What do I want to do now? Oh, yeah. Yeah, here's the stack. I keep saying you get for free. You get for free. So you have the device itself, those Kinect drivers. That's what somebody mentioned machine learning. It was you. That's the Microsoft research. They're building the actual drivers for this thing. That runtime is, you know, we're high-level language programmers, right? We're used to runtimes. One would speculate that the Windows 10, well, there'll be, I think we could assume there's going to be a universal API for this thing. God, I hope so. I hope they don't screw that up. And there'll always be .NET forever and ever and ever. In the version 1, you can only do .NET on the client, but now, believe it or not, you can do web-based, like in JavaScript. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can. Yes, sir.
That stack, all the red or from the red, it's in your machine, so the real brain computation is happening on your computer.
Great.
So
that's a very good question.
In itself, it's just.
The answer is sort of. Mostly. I should say mostly. Yeah, the heavy lifting is mostly done in the sensor itself. That's that driver layer. That runtime is just an interface to programming languages, right? So, you know, really this driver thing should be a different color. But yeah, the guts of it are right here.
But the driver, it runs on your machine, so it's not in the same.
It runs here and here. That's power. It runs here. It's embedded here. So the sensor really just sucks data into this thing. And then this thing is doing this. When the prototypes first came out of this device, it came with a block, you know, with a circuit board. Yeah. Yeah. But that's all Microsoft's going to tell us. Someone like you would have to pull it apart and reverse engineer it to really figure out what's going on.
It's partially good if somebody wants to make a Windows 10 driver or something, because then the computation is.
Or a Linux driver, right? Yeah. I mean, and it's a new Microsoft, right? I don't think they'd mind if someone made a Linux driver. They don't seem to mind anymore, which is cool. I love that. So let me show you what comes with the thing. When you, I had a URL earlier. If you just search on, you know, Kinect for Windows, you get the SDK, and it installs this bad boy. This is one of the things it installs. This is the browser, and unlike other places in Microsoft, especially Windows, I wish Windows would do this. They give you a bunch of admin and sample apps and directly running the stuff in source. So what the heck does that mean? This verifier thing is what I first did to make sure that my Kinect was talking. And it says, I'm not so sure your Surface has the right USB 3, but it's okay. And everything else is good. But this is what I wanted to show you. Like, what were we just talking about? Okay, we were talking about body basics. So install means put the source code in my folders in Visual Studio projects. You could just run this stuff directly, and then this would be skeletal tracking, I think. Yeah. Right. So source code for that simple app, right there at the SDK. I was going to show you. Here, I think I had it. I was playing with it a couple weeks ago. Yeah, here we go. So I did the coordinate mapping thing, which is, sorry, hang on. Oh, I forgot to tell you. See, there's a ton of awesome stuff in here, but I did this. I installed this source code. It is this. And then I started hacking away and I built this. God, I hope this runs. So I was in Brussels. I was telling you that it profiled me as Japanese. I was in Brussels the other day. This is some famous palace in Brussels. That's like 100 lines of source code. I just think that's so impressive. Some of the source is a little bit over my head, but that is so cool. So let's do the infrared thing while I think of it. Here. That actually doesn't look that good. Oh, maybe it's just because of lighting. But anyways, there's the infrared camera. No, it's all right. Mike will just get creepy if we turn off the lights. All right, moving right along. So, these are my cheat notes. This is how you create. Well, might as well just do this in Visual Studio. This is how you create a Windows Store app. You don't have to create a Store app, but the Kinect team wanted me to do this to show you how brain dead simple it is. Yet, some of this stuff is not totally obvious. So let me do this again. This. That's annoying. Visual Studio. So I'll do File, New, Project, or we're going to build a Windows Store app. Where are we? Fresno. How hot was it today? 110. Wow.
It's 100. I guess it's the high today.
Wow. It wouldn't be that bad if you had water, right? Okay. First thing is you have to turn on. This has bit me in the so many times. You have to turn on the webcam, and what else? You have to turn on the webcam. Oh, and the microphone, of course. So that's in this package manifest. I'm just going to open it, and then it's over here, capabilities. So I do webcam, and I do microphone. Okay? And then let's see. We'd also need to add some form of reference, right? So we do. This is fairly interesting. Have you ever seen well, how do I set this up? If you're using like beta versions of Visual Studio and beta versions of .NET, you'll see how the Windows team breaks interface all the time. They'll name an interface, and you'll write some sample code, right? And then they'll come out with a new version and they'll rename the interface. They break it. It happens all the time. This is one that they never got around to changing. It's still called Kinect Preview, but that's the actual interface, right? And then you need a oh, you got to add reference to it, of course. So if we do, you'd have to do this type of thing. And you'd have to do like using, what was that? Kinect? What was that? Now I already forgot the name of the interface. It is Windows, of course, Windows, we're just making fun of it. Windows dot preview. I can't even.
Windows preview.
Yeah, and I'm not wearing my glasses. Windows. Was it all one word? It was. Windows preview dot connect. Windows preview dot. Why aren't I getting that?
There's a warning on your reference of it.
Edit config dot sys. Maybe I need to do this. Oh, x86. Okay, how about now? I can't even see what I'm typing. Windows, here, let's do this. Yay! Windows. Why aren't you doing that? Hang on, I'm going to figure this out if it kills me. Did that. Did I add that reference? Yeah, there it is.
You can just drag drop that reference.
Well, I could always do like this, right? Okay, you explain to me why Visual Studio hated that.
Well,
I have no idea. Here I was going to tell you, oh, this is so easy.
sometimes when there's errors, I think it like
Keep driving. Too funny. Okay, so I'll just talk about C# today because I'm so not a web guy, but just understand that there's an API on the JavaScript side for this. So the sensor class just represents the camera itself, right? And it's pretty simple to get reference on it. They're called, in version 1, we called these streams. Now they're called data sources, and that came out of the Windows 8 guidelines. This gives you access to the readers for all these data streams that it has. The sensors expose one source per data type. So once you have a reader, the reader gives you the access to the frames via eventing or polling. Polling would be like for games. I barely know that world. It's not that interesting for me, for that game loop type style of app. Mostly in .NET, we do eventing type apps. So take a look at this source code using the readers. You get the source from the Kinect sensor, and then you open the reader and you subscribe to that frame ready event. And then, you subscribe to the frame arrived event, and then you'll get called back when that frame comes in. We'll stare at code in a second, and this will make sense. Actually, it's going to make a lot more sense if you just take my code and step through it at home or tomorrow at work or something like that. So the frame reference gets sent in the frame event args meaning it describes the data as it's sending the data to you. They give you access to the frames itself. The acquired frame and the relative frame are the two keys. Acquired frame gives you access to the frame, right? So why don't you get the frame directly? Well, as it turns out, eventing is non-deterministic. It happens based on the thread you're on, right? So technically, as you're pumping messages, you might get behind. So that's why that you don't get, and then you'd have a null frame, and then you wouldn't be tracking that well, right? So that's why you don't get access to the frame directly. And then of course it would bog down like crazy. So if the frame is null, it's expired. So your app actually catches up pretty quickly to a valid frame. When the event subscription fires, you get the frame reference from the frame event args. And then the using block here in the C# code dispenses of the frame automatically when it's done. So it makes sure you're ready for the next one. We're going to go through all this interface stuff, and we'll stare at code and play around in a minute. So the frames themselves give you access to the actual Kinect data, so you can start using them. So when I'm doing that skeletal tracking thing or body tracking thing, if I'm responding to hand close, hand open, that type of thing, that's the actual data that's coming in, and I'm processing with it. So it's recommended you make a local copy or access the underlying buffer to this stuff directly. And then this gives you the ability to act on it really quickly without having to keep all these frames alive that are actually being rapid fired at you in USB 3 over the USB 3 interface. I casually mentioned that the frame itself contains the metadata, or the frame data itself contains the metadata about the frame along with the data. So every frame you get, it will tell you the width and the height, the color format, and all that type of stuff. So it tells you how to use the data in addition to giving it to you. And as I casually mentioned earlier, not closing or disposing of your frames will prevent you from getting new ones and get all bogged down. It's all pretty self-explanatory. So let's take a peek at this little app I built. So I was so infatuated with the way this thing sees in the dark that I thought, why don't I see if I can get the Kinect to look in complete darkness and pull humans out of it by using the infrared reader and then using the body tracking reader, right? So I'm looking in the infrared camera, I see a human, and then I put like a circle or ellipse or something on his or her face. Does that make sense? Here, let me step through it. So, and then we'll run it. So that would be this guy. This started at 6, right? And I was late. It was 6:15. All right.
Normally start at 6:30 anyway. So.
Okay, I got to speed up a little bit. All right, so we already battled that guy, right? Here, let me make it bigger so I can see. Whoops. We already saw this. You'll believe me that if I open the package manifest, I have the camera, or I have the mic and the camera turned on. So I'm going to put an ellipse on the head, so I define that up front. This is about, let's see, this is about, what does that say? I don't know. That's 167 lines of code. I really should have run it first, but let me just show you the interesting stuff. All right, so we already talked about this. That's how you get reference to the sensor, and now I'm getting the infrared. I'm getting reference to the infrared reader because I'm going to look out with the infrared reader, and I'm going to look for humans. Here, I need a place to put the data. That's what that is. I need to convert that infrared to an image because all the XAML is in this guy. I don't know if you're XAML people, but the only thing this is a grid with a canvas in it and an image, right? So I'm just going to portray like a video image. I'm going to look out there, and it's going to put a red ellipse on your heads, or if you move around and track them, all right? So we write all this stuff, all that image stuff to a bitmap, and WPF is really good with this stuff. Here's the bodies. Remember, it tracks natively 6 people at a time. So technically, I'm limited to one. You know, there's 9 of us in here, and it's only going to get the first 6 it can see. Okay, because that's all it can see. The V1 camera could see 2 at a time. This one could see 6. There's my image element. There's my bitmap source. Now here's the main page loaded. So I get reference to the sensor. Then I get the infrared reader. And then in the data, I figure out how big those buffers are. Now I'm screwing around with the buffers. And then in this app, I got to convert it to an RGBA image. That there's a much more elegant and powerful way to do this, but it would like triple the lines of code. This is truly like a hello world. So I'm still setting up my bitmap stuff here. So there's an array of 6 bodies because I've got to cycle through them. And here's my frame reader to capture the body and the infrared data, right? Open the sensor. And then now that I got all that stuff set up, I can start dealing with it. And that is, here's my multi-source frame reader, meaning I'm going to suck in 2 data sources at the same time, infrared, and I'm going to suck in the body reader. I got to check for nulls. I got to see if I've got good data here. I grab it. And then this is that business about making sure I'm not getting dead frames, right? And then, or null frames as they were. I'm hammering that into the array. And then this is the part right here. I didn't write this code. I copied it. I found it I can't remember where I found it, but this is like the poor man's way to do infrared. You could be a lot more elegant with this. So what's that mean? I'm only going to be using the infrared reader for about 80% of its capacity. I could get another 20% if this was a professional application in security and we're staring in a warehouse looking for people wandering through in the dark, we'd do it the right way. But this is a hello world type app. So we do that converted stuff in WPF so that I can copy this stuff directly into the pixel buffer. And then now that I've got that infrared, I want to cram the body data and put it into array because I'm going to iterate through the pieces of the body. It's going to give me for free, head, joint, arm, leg, hand, knee, hips. It reads like 28 places on the body. So I'm going to iterate through that because all I want is the face, because that's what I'm going to put a ellipse on. I could put the HD camera, the raw camera on there, but if it's in the dark, we ain't going to see nothing, right? Make sense? That's why we're just going to put a red, like Jack-in-a-Box type thing on it. Okay, and then I'm zooming through there, and ultimately, I'm going to get a head right here. Here, let me scroll over so you can see this. Pretty simple code, joint type dot head, joint top type dot right hand, joint type dot neck, stuff like that. And then here is that ellipsis business, and I'm just going to put that on the head. And now I'm just adding it to the the canvas in the XAML canvas, and boom, I'm done. All right, you want to see it run? Enough talking about it. Let's run it. It's got, so move your head. See, it's looking into total. For this demo, we really should turn off the lights, but you know, they're. So the idea is we're looking into total darkness and it's pulling out the humans. Now, the question I usually get is, hey, could you do that for dogs? And the answer is no. We can't do that for dogs. It's seeing humans natively.
Well, is it a software issue, or I mean, it can't be a hardware issue that you can't see dogs, right?
No, to see dogs, you'd have to use the depth camera, and the depth camera won't work in total darkness. Remember, for free, it identifies a human, which is kind of cool.
So do you
All right.
use
The dog skeleton is strictly
right?
You know, technically, they could build in, you know, German Shepherd and recognize it in the firmware, right?
But you can't do it after the fact. In the software?
You probably could. It wouldn't be for the faint of heart. All right. So that was like 150 lines of code. I think that's pretty powerful. I think that's pretty cool. Let's see. Alt F4. Let's get rid of that. Get rid of this. Oh yeah, I gotta pimp Carl. So I gotta stop. I gotta hang on. I'm sick of this. Let me show you what I'm doing. Oh, here, P. Duplicate. Where is, here it is, right here. Lucky. There we go. Okay, that should work, yeah. So I'm all about developer productivity, and Carl Franklin's one of the .NET Rocks guys. You know, he does that internet talk show. Great friend of mine. We're talking in a bar in Europe somewhere, and I'm like, you know what? The only thing that's really a pain in the ass, sorry, is, you know, my, how do I said, we're building this interactive digital signage, and all I want to do is go like this. I want to move to the next, right? Picture PowerPoint. I just want to do this. And I'm getting this whining from these 25-year-old engineers, like, oh, we'll have to track like a gazillion points on the body, and you know, we got to accommodate someone who's 3 feet tall and someone who's 8 feet tall, and it's, you know, it's just going to take so much work to build that gesture. So I'm like, Carl, couldn't you just record a gesture and have the computer do it? He's like, that's a great idea. So that's what he built. If you want to build an interface where you're waving at computers the quick and dirty way, this is free. Grab this thing. It's totally fun. So a demo I do with it is I get it. I have this little app. I measure the touchdown gesture, and then I record the word touchdown. So I walk in front of it, run the app, and go like this, and it goes touchdown, touchdown. And I can do that in like 5 minutes. It's a great demo. And of course, I don't have it on this computer. Whoops, I hit the URL. There you go. Okay. Okay, here's the bad news. Remember I told you I was going to show you the bad news? So I told you it's got a Windows 8 dependency. Here's the really bad news. Right here. USB 3. Do you know how rare that is? It just so happens that a Surface, God only knows why, a Surface has USB 3. Excuse me, it doesn't have the right USB 3. You notice when I did the verifier in the beginning, it said, shit, I don't know what this USB 3 is. But it does work. And then look at that bad boy. It's crunching a lot of data. Now, we run production apps on i5s. And, you know, it's depending on what you're doing. But this thing needs a ton of horsepower, which is kind of a bummer. So you've got a $200 device, and then you've got to hook it up to these ultimate computers just to do anything. That's kind of a drag. I would speculate that they're going to overcome that. I don't know. They need USB 3 to get popular. And why is it USB 3 dependent? They're shoving so much data down the wire that it just USB 2 couldn't keep up. Anybody want to have some whiny comments about this? Yeah. I know what you're thinking.
It's a $150 machine is USB 3.
There you go.
USB 3, so
Let's go.
it's a $150
Is it
laptop. So
is it an i5?
And no, it definitely doesn't have the processor requirements, but it does have
I'd be curious to see if a
it's
Kinect.
just a Chromebook, so it's not even like.
Oh, it's
Yeah, so
well,
the processor's
it's missing the Windows
the
thing.
processor's super weak, but I'm just saying that
Yeah.
one spec.
So it's got 1 out of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Windows thing would be important. They don't call these Windows Connects for nothing. But this new Microsoft, who knows? I'm just convinced
They
that.
do have the stream machines that are competing directly with the Chromebook. So I wonder that they obviously don't have the power to do it, but they do have the Windows and probably the USB 3 component. One more thing checked off.
Do you guys use Xamarin to build cross-platform apps in .NET? Do you use that? It's kind of an expensive tool set, but Xamarin allows you to build like mobile apps, right, on other platforms in C#. It's kind of cool. Miguel, I used to know a long time ago, the head of this company. Nice guy, really smart. I'm convinced, I shouldn't say this on tape, but I'm convinced that Microsoft is going to build it end to end. Just eliminate Xamarin and allow you to Visual Studio on every platform and platform to every platform and every device. It just makes so much sense. They've already done the hard stuff on the ASP.NET side for enterprise. They've done the security. They've done the authentication, all that stuff. It seems so much sense to do it end to end. We'll see. Oh, that's all I got. Oh, wait, no, I need the big demo. Hang on. Let's see. So I did the demographic profiling. Yeah, okay. So in review, we did a facial recognition on this guy. I provisioned Mike quickly, did a facial recognition. Then we ran that Ospreys thing and showed inaccurately the demographic tracking and stuff like that. Now, and then I showed you some digital signage that wasn't really rendered correctly. But I said, look carefully at that. Remember that? So now look at this. Let's see, where is that? That is, yeah, here. All right. Bear with it 1 minute. Okay, no one look. That was a joke. Okay, so remember this. Hang on. I just want to get it so you guys can see it. Okay. And although it didn't show on the screen, you remember this? We walked in front of it, right? And it went to this. This is like, hey, touch me and get your coupon type mode. Now check this out. Come here, Mike. Top right. Stare at the camera. So what are we seeing? We're Big Brother. In these coolers with this digital advertising, we're doing a demographic profile. And this is really, I told you I'm totally into this consumer behavior stuff. At age 53, white male, I'm an ignored demographic, right? Because I'm not influenceable. Typically, guys like us, Tim, can I put you in me and, that that 45 to 55 demographic, we're the get off my lawn. We're those guys, right? Just because Beyonce says she drinks Diet Pepsi, I'm not going to switch from Coke. You know who does? Millennials. Millennials are influenced so easy. This is freaking scary stuff. Millennials are influenced when Beyonce says she drinks Diet Pepsi, and if they get a 40% coupon, and we got to be careful the way we define millennial because it's defined many ways. But in the I mentioned on tape too. That giant CPG, and then the other one we're working for, and the other one they're working for, it's we have to ignore under 12 because of privacy law. So we can get age. We can tell if you're under 12. So we ignore those people, right? So from 12 to 28, that's the target, and typically a female, because they're influenceable. Well, how do I say this? We can track you in a store just by watching you, and we may not know your name, but we know you go to the grocery market every Saturday at 9 o'clock. And those companies will try to influence your behavior, right? If you opt in to do this, like you would go to Facebook and say, I opt in for the macaroni and cheese, the free promotion, and I agree to be tracked. I would never freaking do that. Would you do that? You would never do that, right? We would never do that. Yeah. We're doing it. Yeah.
There's nothing that says this can say, hi, Dan, welcome back. By the way, you bought this ice cream last night. Here's a coupon.
Exactly.
And I'm way outside the demographic, but
Well,
I'll suck right into that.
for 40% off, my wife would purchase anything, right? It doesn't matter. Seemingly. Yeah. Yeah. So this kind of space shade. We're not trying to be Big Brother, but it is kind of interesting. There are other implications for this type of stuff. Security is one of them. Also, in many places in the world, not the U.S., child kidnapping happens a lot. Like in South Africa, kids are kidnapped. So in the grocery stores there, we're going to track under 12s, right? And then there's ways to set off alerts and alarms and stuff like that. Other scenarios would be, did you know? People are so stupid. Grandma Huckaby writes her 4-digit ATM code on her ATM card, and she's not unique. There are gazillions of people who do this who can't remember. We have so many codes, right? It would make total sense to have a $200 camera above the ATM saying, "Hey, is that Mike?" It makes total sense. Yeah. But the consumer behavior stuff, what else do I want to show you? And notice we've got the little, this is the configuration app for this software. Notice we can screw, how do I do that though? Oh, I do it with my hands, I think. Wait a minute, bear with me. Oh, here we go. How did I do this? The point is, this is a brand new build of the software. I can't remember how to do this. We can screw with the scope that it looks. I told you it can see about 30 feet. Well, we may only want to see 10 feet. The real power here is for the data scientists. We're capturing a ton of data, and it's all going up to Azure, and these data science visualize it, and they look for buying patterns and all this stuff to affect consumer behavior, mostly in product launches. Yeah. I don't know why I can't screw with that. Oh, yeah. Here's how I did it. Yeah. So it's not WYSIWYG. Yeah, so now it's looking out farther. And don't worry, this data gets erased. We're not going to save you. We don't need smart people's consumer or smart people in a room like this. Neat, huh? Questions, comments?
So I thought like do you record emotion? Because I was thinking that would be. That's what I thought what you were going to reveal is that you were recording like
So
how he responded.
well,
to the
no, we do.
advertisement.
I forgot to tell you. So emotion though for us is this, right? But typically, if you're looking at something and smiling, you could call that, hey, they like that. So we measure how long they look at the ad, and with the percentage. Kelly. Well, in an opt-in scenario, Kelly Huckaby watched the Diet Pepsi ad for 3 minutes, which was 80% of the ad, and she was happy, or she was smiling. She was happy for 20% of the time. And that all that stuff gets stored, including the demographic profile. The brands want us to do female with small person attached, but I think that's crosses the line a little bit. I think that breaks privacy law because we're supposed to ignore under 12s and understand that privacy law. This is a U.S. thing.
But the privacy
In-
comes in only.
Well, in Germany, we never ever will do any of this ever. In Asia, they have no privacy in Asia.
Wait, privacy comes in only if you can identify really. So it's not just the person A and the person B, but you can identify that this is.
So can I paraphrase? Can I paraphrase? In the U.S., and unfortunately, I know more about privacy law than I ever dreamed I would. But in the U.S., we can do. I know. I have you in the database. I have your face. I don't know who you are, but I have your face because we're not storing the picture. We're just storing the structure. We can do that. If you opt in, like in the casinos, the big high market players, that spend all the money, they want to come in and just look at it and have it be recognized, and boom, their cell phone's like, here's your free prime rib dimmer, and Latoya Jackson is playing the concert tonight, or Celine Dion, or something like that, and then boom, 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 all, and they don't have to talk to anybody. Yeah, crazy, huh? Yeah.
How well does it detect where you're looking? I mean, can I turn my face this way and look this way, and it'll know? Like.
In facial recognition?
Not just facial recognition, but like where my eyes are pointed. I guess I'm worried. Like, how do you know that they're looking at the ad and they're not just like looking at a different thing over here? With their eyes.
The answer is yes. We can tell whether you're looking right at the ad. Yeah. Well, at the screen.
Accuracy, like, can you tell which part of the screen?
So it's funny you bring that up because picture the supermarket. The coolers are in banks, and this software will spread across the banks. But they want to do exactly that. It's a little trickier. They want it to, somebody's Kelly Huckaby's on one end, Tim Huckaby's on the other, and we can target content based on those people, right? But your scenario is a little harder.
Because I'm thinking, like, can you do A/B testing where you have like an ad on the top and ad on the bottom, and then you notice, oh, they're staring at the top ad, and then you expand, and then you provide another set. So it's like a choose your own adventure advertising, where basically the next stage is determined by how you react.
That's exactly what they want to do. But this is so dynamic. You can, in this thing, let me get rid of this. You can. You can screw with these. You can screw with the regions. So, like, I'll do. So now we've got a definition of a new region, and now the camera. We just haven't built it yet. It's doable, right? But we haven't built it like, oh God, the camera's now got to look in there. So we could get some accuracy, but it's not built into this version of the software. But that's exactly what they want to do. So the interactive zones and non-interactive zones, and they want to A/B test. The ice cream company, they have a new product, Dove bar things, and they want to A/B test against something Nestle, like an ice cream cone or something like that. Yeah, makes sense. Makes total sense. And remember, it's just capturing data like crazy. Data, 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 data. Just watching consumer behavior. Neato, huh? All right. That's all I got. That's all I got for you. Here, let me wrap this up. Let me see if there's anything salient we want to talk about here. So if I did a good job here, I talked about where this thing is good and where it's not. You know, last time I was here, I was infatuated with waving at computers and manipulating interfaces, and that is kind of cool. And you've probably seen it now. You've seen it in hotels and stuff. Now we're engaging with the body and making, well, the CPGs want your eyeballs. We're especially in Asia, where there's so much digital signage, we don't even see it anymore, right? So you need movement, engaging stuff. Advertising, as we used to know it, is almost completely different. The traditional advertising is only really in the Super Bowl these days. You know, it's all in digital and electronic type of forms. You know, advertising in magazines it's just dying. This stuff is easy to build, relatively easy until you get to trig and calculus. If you want to do anything advanced in Kinect, it's trig and calculus, and a lot of it. In fact, I should show you a bug we have. We have a trig bug in there that I stumbled into today. Let's see. In a keynote, I typically talk about, you know, I was there in an all-boys Catholic high school taking typing for a full year, and that's why I'm a machine gun today. And then I started programming, and in the early 90s, they invented this thing, and they told us that we were gonna take our right hand off the keyboard and use this thing. This is before Windows, you know, GUI-based opera. You remember this, and it was the most well, you guys with gray hair remember this. It was the most unnatural thing in the world, right? Remember that? It was so wrong, and then you couldn't get your right hand back to the keyboard. And then those Apple people invented that iPad. And you know, remember Steve Jobs held it up and like it's in front of the lion, like in the Lion King, in front of the entire animal kingdom. You know, here's the $800 toy. Everyone buy it. And my wife said, "Yes, I want one of those," and she did, unfortunately. But the point is, who would have thought that they could build a browser that was completely touch friendly? Right. If you think about Windows, you know, this is a Surface. This is a touch-based computer. Look at that little red X in the top right. Even if I had the dexterity, that is very difficult to touch. Right. This is a touch-enabled OS, but it's really not touch usable. Right. But those Apple people did such a good job. And my point is, now a 2-year-old can walk up to an iPad and just use it because it's part of our culture. He or she doesn't need to be trained, they just use it. So I'm going to argue that these things in different implementations are just going to be more and more and more prevalent, and you're going to see more and more and more, and it's just going to be part of the way we use computers. Yeah. All right. Here's me. If you want any of this stuff, send me an email. I'm not going to save your email address. I'm not going to put you on a list. I don't even know how to do that. But I need to put all this stuff up in a place where you can download it, because this deck is heavy. It's got pictures, so it's, you know, it's like 25 megs. So I can't just email this stuff around. Oh, I should probably show you before I let you go, or before we discuss. There are other 3D cameras out there. This just happens to be the best one right now. And what's the great thing about hardware? A year from now, there'll be a better camera than this, and it'll be half the price, and it'll be smaller, and it'll see in sunlight. Oh, by the way, these things hate fluorescent lights and they hate sunlight, infrared. Right? They do not work outside. You know. Yeah, sure. Sorry, thought I was the only one with bad eyes. The top, actually, that's $200. There. Now I'll project it. That was the old camera. This guy right here, the Leap, They have great videos on their site. I personally cannot. We have owned some of these. I can't think of a use case. It reads fingers from about 12 feet high. I can't think of a good use case. At least
in a VR headset, one of the problems is you don't have good
except for
vision into the
games. Yeah.
Well, not games, just in general. Like like if you were to do maybe architectural stuff or something like that, you need to put your hands in the space. So the Leaf actually solves that problem because it handles dexterity very well.
Yeah.
I think it's a great use case for.
There you go. There's a use case for the Leaf. The other one is Space Invaders.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
That makes total sense. But it's But plus it's cheap and it's cross-platform. It's on every platform. So that's why it's cool. The soft kinetic folks, those are the ones that are in the new Intel. That's the Intel camera that's getting all the rage right now. The ones that's being built into computers. They've been around forever. Great company. They just don't have the SDK that the Microsoft folks have. And then these folks discontinued their camera, but it was an amazing camera in a small amount of use cases. It was also that, yeah, but it could see in broad daylight. Amazing technology. Yeah. Ultimately, they have to solve the 3D camera for this.
Yeah, what about the Tango? What do you think of that?
I haven't played with it. What do you think of it?
I wish I bought one. I have the tablet one.
Yeah.
The first one was a phone. And actually, I would be interested in. Can you use the Kinect somehow for 3D scanning? Like, scanning a room, for example, the 3D mesh of a room.
Well, Kinect Fusion, which comes with the SDK. So I showed you the SDK and all the sample apps and all that. There's an app in there called Kinect Fusion with Source. That was done by the machine learning folks. And it allows you to do exactly that. But my computer isn't powerful enough to run it. So, and there's an app that goes with it where you use it like a vacuum. So like if it was this Pepsi thing, you'd be like, and it would build the 3D mesh, and then you can output to 3D printer. You can even output over the internet. There's a bunch of 3D printer services.
And the source code of that is
Fusion, Kinect Fusion. Here.
The source code is open.
Yeah. Everything's open in that company these days, except for Windows, because they're embarrassed. All right, that's all I got. Yeah, sorry about that. Oh, no. Yeah. Okay. I'm driving to the Kern River.
Also, there's water there.
Oh, can we do one more thing? I'm a software guy, but I'm really a nature guy by heart. I'm a fly fisherman, catch and release, all that. Look at this. This is unbelievable. Of course, you live here, so you probably know this. It's this one.
Yeah.
So, I've been to this in June is the melt off. That's when this river is only 75 feet wide at its most up in the upper part, and it is a raging, dangerous, nasty river at this time of year. Dangerous, unfishable.
Can you click on the show?
No, I'm getting to it. So it's currently at that's the lowest I've ever seen it. I fished it last year at about 250. This is the lowest I've ever seen it. This is during the drought. Normally, this river is at 2,500 cubic feet per second. You see, it was under 200. It's normally at 2,500 at this time of year. That's drought.
Look how it dips in the fall. I wonder how far it's going to go down. I mean, because it's just started its plummet. If you look at the 3 years graph, They map the other years over it, so it looks like, you know, in the coming months, it should go down a lot further.
Yeah, we need rain. We need rain in a bad way.
We need just
That's when
to
we
make
just look at it.
desalinization more efficient, and then we can pipe water back over to us instead of.
I live in Carlsbad,
Yeah,
California.
we get the water.
We have a desal plant.
Oh, you guys do?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
And the cool thing about the desal plant isn't as much as pulling the salt out. It's they have to go uphill. And water has the one of the head of environmental guys in our neighborhood. He said, I'm like, so you must spend so much energy pushing the water uphill, you know? And you don't. Yeah, it's got viscosity. It kind of pulls itself through. He says we give it when it comes out of the membranes down at the ocean. We give it a little shove, and then we actually give it a little pull on top. And that's it. And it goes for 10 miles and empties in a reservoir. That's kind of cool. But if we can pump oil from Alaska,
Right.
we have these things called Great Lakes.
Yeah, okay.
So the water can only get so expensive before we start doing that. So
Right.
there is a limit where we will have solutions.
Well, thanks for having me.